Hi, my name is David Siegel, and I am an audio engineering lecturer here at SA Stockholm. We're sitting right now in Soundtrade Studios, and this video is sponsored by both SA Stockholm and We Are Machine Media. Today we're going to build a paper speaker. So that sounds a little bit weird, but the truth is that with pretty everyday household objects, you can actually make a working speaker. So we have a paper plate, some regular paper, some cardboard, a little bit of copper wire here, and a neodymium magnet, together with a little bit of tools and tape and some glue. So a speaker works basically by causing a membrane to push forward and pull backwards. And it's this motion that creates audio signals, that creates the audio waves in the air. So as it pushes forward against the air, it creates a compression. And as it pulls backwards, it creates a rarefaction. This is the actual audio that you hear. The speed at which the membrane moves forward and backwards decides the frequency of the sound, otherwise known as the pitch. What we need to do is we need to take a regular magnet. Here we have a stack of neodymium magnets, and we need to make what is called a voice coil. A voice coil is basically just really simple. It's a copper wire wound around into a coil. A property of a coil is that when you attach electricity to it, it becomes magnetic. It creates a magnetic field. When you take the electricity away, it's no longer magnetic. As you might know from playing with magnets, if you take a magnet, they attract and they repel each other. So when you create an electromagnet and you have a regular magnet here, it will either push away or be attracted to this magnet. This will in turn create motion. If we attach this coil to a membrane, or in this case a paper plate, it will then push the plate up and down depending on the audio signal. So just to demonstrate how an electromagnet works, I have some copper coil or copper wire. I have a screw and another screw. So as we can see here, these are just screws. There's no attraction between them. Now, if I wrap this wire tightly around the screw and attach it to this battery, ta-da! We can create a magnetic field. Now the key here is that we need to create a magnetic field that changes polarity, that goes from plus to minus. And that is what an audio signal is, basically. If you've ever zoomed in on an audio signal and see what it looks like, you'll see that there's a plus side and that there's a minus side. And that's what will create the plus and minus magnetic fields and push our membrane forwards and backwards and thus make sound. So let's do it. So the first step is that we're going to have to actually make this voice coil. So the voice coil is going to sit around this magnet in order for it to work. So we're just going to use regular paper, and we're going to cut out a strip of paper and wrap it around this magnet. We're going to do that once, and then we're going to do it again. The first strip of paper is actually just a spacer to make sure that we have enough room around the magnet for the coil to move up and down, because the speaker won't work if it can't move. So let's just get a little idea here of how wide this strip needs to be. And then tape it together. Before we take it out, I'm going to wrap this copper wire around it. The reason I'm doing it before we take out the magnet is that the magnet gives a little bit of support here so that it doesn't bend our voice coil. So this is what a voice coil looks like. If you take apart a regular speaker and an electrodynamic speaker, it will actually look surprisingly a lot exactly like this. I'm going to tape everything down so that it stays in place. There we go. Now we have our voice coil. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to take our magnets and actually tape them or glue them to the center of a piece of cardboard. You can use any piece of cardboard, it can be a cereal box or whatever. I'm gonna use some glue just because it's easier. I like using a hot glue gun because it dries very quickly. If you use other kinds of glue, it's all right, but you have to make sure that it dries completely before you can move on to the next step. So the voice coil is going to sit over this magnet like this, and it will then move up and down when we send it an audio signal. We need to attach the voice coil to the paper plate because it's this that's going to drive the movement. The next step is that we need to actually make sure that this membrane or our paper plate is connected to the cardboard. For this, I'm going to use some business cards, and this will serve as a guide to make sure that we get an even movement in the speaker membrane. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to just fold these into little W's. Now we're going to glue them to the base of the paper plate. These W's are then going to be glued, the spring action will be glued to the cardboard. It's important that you don't glue the voice coil to the cardboard, otherwise the speaker won't be able to move. All right, so our speaker is nearly complete. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take these leads and attach them to an audio signal. The problem is that a regular audio signal coming from a phone or an MP3 player won't be strong enough to make this speaker work. What we need is an amplifier. This is just a little homemade amplifier. You can use any kind of hi-fi amplifier, though I would recommend using one with less wattage just so that you don't run the risk of shorting it out. This is only a simple 4-watt amplifier, so it doesn't make that much power. In order to connect these leads to the amplifier, I'm going to just solder on some extra cables. You don't have to do this. If you have a longer copper wire, you can actually connect them directly to the amplifier. What we're going to have to do now is connect these leads to the amp right here. So our amp is connected, it's plugged in. Let's take an audio signal, plug it into our amp. So let's see what happens when we push play. Well, look at that. We've got some sound coming out of our paper speaker. So using everyday things that you can have lying around the home and some magnets and just some extra tools, you can actually make a speaker. It's maybe not the most bassy speaker that you've ever heard in your life, but actually the bass response in a lot of speakers is because of the actual box. The construction creates a resonance and that amplifies the bass. You can sort of get this effect by taking, for instance, a paper cup and placing it over. You can even put the speaker down and you'll hear that the resonance of the cup drastically increases the bass response. The incredible thing is that actually really when you get close to it, if you put it right up to your ears, there's a lot more bass than you might think. The problem is that the bass is at such a low energy that it doesn't travel very far. But if you get right nice and close, you'll notice that there's actually a fair amount of bass coming out of this. You can experiment using different materials, using different voice coils, different kinds of distances. more or less magnets. There's a lot of different kinds of things here to do. And it's a fun way of learning actually exactly how an electromagnetic speaker works. So you might think that we're completely done here, but an interesting aspect of an electrodynamic speaker is that it works on the exact same principle as an electrodynamic microphone. Which means in reality that a speaker is an inverted microphone and a microphone is an inverted speaker. If we were to connect this speaker to an audio recorder, theoretically we could talk into the speaker and record audio. If I just hold these leads to a audio jack,
so theoretically I can yell into our speaker and turn it into a microphone.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope that you had a good time, that you learned something, and that you should try this at home. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way of understanding both how a speaker and actually a lot of microphones work. So again, this video is sponsored by SAE Stockholm, We Are Machine Media, and will be posted up on Human Interface TV, where you can find all kinds of fun things related to music, media, and technology. So we're listening to No Gravity by Death by Toaster, a local band here from Stockholm, and we're listening to it through our amazing homemade paper speaker. We hope you enjoyed this, and now you don't need to have a nice Neve board or these Genelecs because we can make everything we need out of paper.